Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Grizzly Bear Sim's YouTube channel, and welcome back to Thornton Farm. This is episode number 20, our 20th episode of this wonderful map. It's been such a joy to play. And I just got a phone call just a few minutes ago from Mr. Thornton, and he wanted me to come up to the pub because he had some information from me. Actually, he has a fairly big task for us. And when I say us, of course, I mean Smithy and Thomas, and of course we've got Sid working for us now. And so it is still the evening. It's just after 6 o'clock on game day number 4 of autumn, and it's the same game day that we were in when we harvested the soybean field in episode number 19. And so we had a lot of work to do today. We've got both of those fields, both of those soybean fields harvested. And well, again, I got this phone call from Mr. Thornton, so we're going to go up there to the pub and see what he wants us to do. Basically, he wouldn't tell me over the phone. He just basically said, get up here to the pub. He says, I've got a change of plans for you guys, and have no idea what that necessarily means. So we'll go up here to the pub, and I'll go inside, find out what he has in store for us, and then I'll update you all. So stay tuned. All right, sounds good, Mr. Thornton. I will let you know when it's all done. Okay, thank you. All right. Well, I may have shared with you all at the sort of the beginning of Thornton Farm series that Mr. Thornton had plans to expand his fields, his farm, and everything. He basically, there's a lot of different things that's going on, and I've talked about the fact that the local farmers, a lot of the local farmers and everything are really struggling and everything to sort of get by. And so we've got a field here, field number 35, which is adjacent to his pub. And, Mr. Thornton likes to kind of keep everything kind of together, all of his assets and everything together. And so clearly, if we look at our map here, the bigger picture of our map, we sort of see that, 12 and 13, 8 and 9, 38, 34, 31, 30, 29, 15, 11. They're all sort of logically placed next to each other and everything. And so obviously with Mr. Thornton owning the pub right next door here, it makes sense for him to potentially want to try to expand his enterprise and everything a little bit further. So we are actually going to buy field number 35. Now, field number 35 is soybeans still, and so we are going to basically purchase this on behalf of Mr. Thornton. And let's just pull up here, and actually let me back up just a second here because this is going to become my screenshot. So we're going to grab that, and then we're going to get our HUDs back here, and then we're going to go ahead and purchase this field here from Mr. Wright, from Richard Wright. So we're going to buy it at $194,000. So yeah, our money and everything jumped down there as a result of that, but that is what it is. So we're going to go ahead and go back over and get into our Deutz and go down and grab the combine. And as we may have thought that we were basically done harvesting soybeans, we are not. So plans change, and that's all part of being flexible and being able to sort of roll with the punches and all that kind of stuff. Hello, sir. How are you? All right, so we're going to go down and grab the harvester off the field. We basically left everything down there, and I guess he must have stopped by, and he must have told Sid to bring the header up there because Sid had already staged the header up there in that field. And so the transaction is done, so we now own that wonderful field, and we'll just pull right in here and just park this guy up here, and then we'll head over and start harvesting those soybeans again. And again, I realize I told you guys in episode number 19 that we obviously would be harvesting the soybeans, but again, you kind of roll with the punches. You go with what needs to be done, and it makes a lot of sense for us to go ahead and basically harvest these beans now. because we just finished. I mean, we literally just finished that field, and I had enough time to essentially go down to the main farm, and I needed to take care of a couple of things with some of the animals, and I'm struggling here on this tiny road here, but had enough time to take care of the animals, and then Mr. Thornton called, and well, you know, I dropped everything. So that's what you do when you work for the man, and until until that changes, that's what we do. So of course, we're not expecting as much high of a yield off the soybean field, simply because, well, Mr. Wright has gotten up in his age, and one of the things that Mr. Thornton wasn't aware of was that basically, oops, going the wrong way here, is that Mr. Wright had essentially sold most of his assets, so he really didn't even have any means necessary to be able to harvest this himself. And so he really needed somebody to buy it. And of course, as I have sort of alluded to over the course of this series, quite a few of the large corporate farming entities have been sort of nosing around. And can we squeeze through here? It's a little tight. Oh, watch your head. Okay. We'll get through this, and let's move this case out of the way here. But a lot of corporate farmer folks have been nosing around up here, looking at the various fields and everything that that are available. And of course, with Mr. Wright not even owning a harvester, he really had no way of harvesting this field. And of course, he's known Mr. Thornton for quite a long time, so they have quite a rapport and everything. And I think Mr. Wright has basically been sort of holding out and hoping that Mr. Thornton would essentially come to his rescue. And I think that they've been, I wouldn't be surprised if they haven't been sort of secretively, or maybe not so much secretively, but discussing the price and everything over some pints and everything. And I think that that's possibly what's been going on. So let's just go ahead and back up here. This is a pretty small field. We probably will just maybe fill the combine with soybeans. Hopefully we can do that. I think that we've managed to get about 35 to 40,000 liters of soybeans off the two fields that we own. Don't quote me on that until we head back down and take a look at the tipper. But essentially, I mean, like I said, we just literally stopped and shut the combine and everything off and disconnected the header, and was getting ready to go ahead and move on down to the field that's right next to the old church. That's where we have our row crop, our corn header stage there, so that we could go ahead and start on the sunflowers, and then of course we're just going to move right over to our cornfield after we've done with that. But so this was a little bit of the wrench thrown into the system, if you will, that we hadn't planned on. But I think that Mr. Thornton had always had in his mind that he wanted to expand his farm, his fields, and pick up at least one, if not two, new fields after the harvest and everything. And so I think that pretty much he was thinking that what he would do is we would pick these fields up either this winter or in the early spring, and of course not have the benefit and everything of the harvest itself. But I think the timing and everything of this particular situation, the way that it's all come about with Mr. Wright essentially selling off all of his assets and everything and selling off this field. He also owns field number 7, which is right beside this field, on the other side of the train tracks there. And so don't know if Mr. Thornton will work out a deal for that field. That field had already been harvested. I believe it had wheat on it, and so Mr. Wright had someone come in and harvest that. But from what we understand, Mr. Wright sold his combine back late last year, and Mr. Thornton didn't even know that. But it is what it is, and sometimes people have to sell off their assets and everything to be able to continue to put food on their table. And pay taxes and all that kind of stuff. So it sounds like that Mr. Wright has been kind of on hard times for quite a while, and I'm sure this will help him, especially if we decide to pick up field number 7, and most likely we will. I think it makes sense for Mr. Thornton to, to pick that field up versus, something that's a little bit further away, where it becomes a little bit more of a logistical problem whenever it comes time to start the harvest or do planting or fertilizing or whatever. If we can just kind of keep all of our ducks kind of in a row where we can easily move our equipment from one field to the other without having to like I said, go clear across the county, because moving the harvester and everything down these small country lanes and everything does present a bit of a problem, just because of the fact that, well, if the country lanes are just barely big enough for the harvester itself to drive down, let alone if someone else is coming. Of course, Mr. Thornton upgraded our combine at the beginning of this season. We had a smaller combine in previous years, and it would take much longer to harvest. And of course, a smaller combine, it was a lot easier to maneuver in these English country roads and everything. But again, because it took longer to harvest the fields, and it was showing its age. It was, quite honestly, it was quite an old combine. It was one that Mr. Thornton had purchased several years ago when Mr. Thornton did more of the work on the farm. Of course, now Mr. Thornton's role here on the farm is pretty much just administrative only, just mainly keeping a hold of the checkbook and kind of helping keep us focused and giving me a little bit of direction and everything. But over, especially this year, Mr. Thornton has really sort of left it up to me to make the decisions on what we plant and sort of when we plant and when we harvest and all that kind of stuff. Mainly, he's just interested in making sure the work gets done. That's obviously first and foremost, and that obviously we take care of everything that needs to be taken care of, and make time to do work for Father Brown or Lady Felicia whenever those kind of situations present themselves. And of course, that's always good stuff for us to do. Father Brown, we went over there and mowed his little yard area where he goes out and contemplates and writes his sermons and everything. And so, we stay on top of that for him, and we'll look forward to doing more of that work next spring and summer for him. And then, of course, if Lady Felicia will allow us, we'll certainly get in there and take care of that grass meadow for her. That includes fertilizing and making sure that the soil and everything has all the nutrients that it needs to be able to grow the grass appropriately for us, because that helps us out, because obviously we don't have to, Mr. Thornton is not responsible for the taxes and everything on the land, but we certainly don't mind putting the sweat equity into it, and also paying for the fertilizer and stuff like that to go into it. She likes to hang. I think Mr. Thornton has asked her numerous times, if he could just outright buy the field from her, because we almost always are taking care of it, mowing it, fertilizing it, and everything. Her point is, well, this land has been in her family for centuries, and until she reaches a point in time that she can't take care of it anymore, or at least can't ask us to take care of it and continue to pay the taxes and everything, I think she wants to continue to consider herself a landowner, and I don't blame her. I don't blame her at all. So, again, Mr. Thornton and Lady Felicia sort of work out each year that we're going to get in there and we're going to cut that grass and everything for her, because that's really the only sort of agreement that he feels is necessary, obviously, because it does, we spend a few £100 a year on fertilizer and just effort and everything, because sometimes we'll go in there and spray liquid slurry, and other times we'll use chemical-based fertilizer, whatever is required. And so basically, he just wants to make sure that, if we're going to be getting in there in the springtime to do things like spreading some liquid slurry or putting down some chemical fertilizer or whatever, and having the effort, the labor, and the costs and everything of the fertilizer or the pesticides or whatever we need to put in there, that we'll get that back with access to the field to be able to cut the grass and use that for either hay or silage or whatever we need it for. So it works out for us quite well to have that sort of relationship. But the ultimate goal, I think, is really to try to keep away corporate farming, to try to keep the sort of the look and feel of how people have used this land for years now, and be able to keep that, and because that's nice for the community. Again, everything that we produce, whether it comes out of the greenhouses or whether it comes off the fields, stays in this local area. That is priority number one, is that we make sure that we grow enough so that those who depend on us, who need the wheat, who need the hay, who need the soybeans and the sunflowers and that kind of stuff, can depend on us to have those each and every year, to be able to provide to them, sell to them, so that they can continue to produce the products that they produce, whether it be bread or a little bit of beer or whatever the case might be, that everything stays local, and that's just wonderful stuff. So the greenhouses obviously are in full production, especially this time of year. We do typically take the greenhouses offline, or we at least stagger them, taking them offline to do maintenance on the greenhouses themselves. We've already done that. That has already been done for this year, and so everything is in top-notch shape as far as the greenhouses are concerned, and everything has been replanted, and we've got manure, we've got water, everything is good to go. We've got basically Sid also is helping out with Smithy on the greenhouses, and so we've managed to keep Sid pretty much employed full time since we were first introduced to him. Since Smithy, really Sid came on board when Smithy got sick, and so we've managed to kind of keep him busy, and I think that obviously with picking up this extra field, even though we're not gonna pay, this field's not gonna pay for itself this year, obviously. We're gonna need to get in here and plow this field and more or less bring it back to life, so that it will produce for us the way that our other fields do. But still, over a course of time, this will be a good investment, having this field. Plus, who knows? I mean, even if we needed to take a portion of this field in, if Mr. Thornton, if his pub gets busier or he wants to expand or whatever, obviously he'll have the space to do that should he want to. But I think he's satisfied with keeping his pub relatively small. I think that's another thing that he enjoys, is the fact that it is small. It only will support a small number of customers, and he's not interested in having any major type of operation with he does have a couple of rooms there that he does rent. I stayed there when I first came into this area, when I was sort of backpacking through the English countryside a number of years ago, sort of as I got my start, and that's how I met Mr. Thornton. And so he put me up in the pub, in the little hotel in the pub, which has a couple of rooms, like I said, and I stayed there for a little while until we got the apartments set up there on the farm. and then I moved into the main house when I more or less took on the foreman responsibilities for this farm. And but you know, he's not interested in anything big. He likes to stay well out of the limelight and everything, and I certainly don't disagree with him at all. So anyway, we're coming up on about 20 minutes here on our video, and again, I kind of know that you guys might have been interested in thinking that we were going to do sunflowers today in this episode, because that's what I said that we would do. But again, plans change, and so I think we're going to be able to get all of this soybeans in the harvester, so we don't need to worry about emptying it. So what we will do is once we get the soybeans off the field, we are going to obviously need to load up the header again onto the case, and then we are done with the grain header at this particular point in time, unless Mr. Thornton you know, finds a way, or if there's any other fields that he has his mind on that has wheat or barley or canola or soybeans on it, then again, I think we are done harvesting these types of grains with this type of equipment. So we will disconnect the header, and it is coming up on 6:45. So we may very well try to tackle getting a portion of sunflower seeds done on this particular day, and then that way, because we still have 3 fields, obviously with Mr. Thornton throwing this whole thing into the mix, this was a field that we had not planned on needing to harvest. And I still bring your attention to the weather forecast. So we probably do need to, and the boys don't mind working late, because they sort of know this time of year, it's much like the spring. The focus is making sure we get all this done, because we've worked hard this spring. We've worked really hard this spring getting all the fields plowed. This was the year that we had to plow everything. So we had to plow everything. We had to fertilize and plant and nurture everything and get everything to go. So we worked hard in the spring and early summer, and then we've got to do this. We've got to see it through, because if we leave anything at all on the field, then all of the hard work that we essentially put into this particular year's harvest and everything will be for naught. Because if for whatever reason, if we don't get the crops off the field, then we really had no business in planting the crops in the first place, because it's just really wasteful. It's wasteful stuff. All right, so I'm going to set my parking brake here. We're just going to leave the combine running, and we're going to go over and get in the case. And I think the boys are in the pub having a quick bite. This time of year, again, Mr. Thornton opens the pub up to us and makes us dinner and everything, and lunch. That's all part of the deal. And so they're over there. I wanted to go ahead and harvest this field because, again, since it's kind of a new field, and Mr. Thornton really wanted to make sure that we got to this quickly, and of course we have. So I will just give him a call on my cell phone here in just a bit and let him know that the work is done, and that we're going to go ahead and continue to move on about the rest of the project, the rest of the fields here. So I tell you what, we've got 6,000 liters of soybean, so we do need to head on back down to the other field where we essentially left our tipper, and I think that we'll just park up there, and then we'll basically empty the grain tank on the combine, and then I'm going to head up to the pub and have dinner, and then regroup with the boys, and we're going to come back, and for episode number 21 we'll be in the same game day. It'll probably be about 30 minutes or so from now, clock time, because I will just eat that burger and fries pretty quick, and then we'll get started in the other field and harvesting. That will be that will be sunflowers. So let's go ahead and get our pipe out. I'm pretty sure we can get all of this in this tipper. Almost sure we can. All right, we'll go ahead and fold up our combine for now and shut it off. All right, so we got 32,000 liters of soybeans. Certainly not anything that's going to set any harvest records or anything like that, but you know, the buyer that we sell our soybeans to pays us a fairly fair price for this, and so we're going to basically take this on back to the main farm for now, and I will start rolling the closing comments and everything, and just basically thank everyone for watching. I appreciate you taking your time out of your busy schedule to stop by the Grizzly Bear Sims YouTube channel and watch my videos either on Thornton Farm, Midtown USA, or the stuff that I'm doing on cattle and crops. So I'm really excited to be able to bring you that, and my apologies if I've sort of contradicted myself, because again, a lot of these videos were recorded prior to me knowing about the update, or when the update was coming out and everything, and the update has been, in my opinion, pretty phenomenal. Especially I'm completely blown away if I'm honest with myself, and if I think about the way things were with the early release of the tech demo back in the early summer of 2017 time frame, from that to what we have now. Again, while it's not ready for prime time, the amount of work, the effort that they've put into it, I've changed my tune. I've changed my feelings about it. I think that they still have a lot of work to do. I would not necessarily anticipate seeing the full game in its full glory, the way that it's intended to be, with everything fixed and everything ready to go, anytime soon. It could still be 6 months, 8 months, 9 months. You know, maybe they'll get it out around the time of before Farm Sim 19 comes out. I don't know. So this is just all speculation at this particular point from me. But anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Please make sure you take good care of yourselves, take good care of each other. If you have questions, if you have comments, please leave them down below, and or always don't forget that you can come over to my Discord channel, and all the information on Discord is down below, and come over and say hello, ask your questions. You can contact me through private message on Discord, and I love hearing from everybody. So thank you all again for watching. I do appreciate it. We're going to put these soybeans away, and I'm going to go have a bite to eat, and then I will see you right back here for episode number 21 in due time. Thank you again for watching, and come back again very soon. Bye-bye for now.